Hello children. Today we continue with the topic the digestive system. In our previous video we discussed up till here that is the structure of a tooth. This is the diagram of a molar and this is the diagram of an incisor. Okay, and as it is shown as black and white, you get a hint that this diagram has to be practiced for exam. Okay, so far we discussed about the structure of the buccal cavity and the components present inside the buccal cavity. So what happens in the buccal cavity? Just a recap of it. The buccal cavity, it has teeth and the tongue present in the cavity. The teeth help to grind the food and the tongue helps to mix the food as well as moisten it. Now moving further. The digestion process, it is of two types or divided into two categories. One is mechanical digestion and the other is the chemical digestion. Mechanical digestion is the digestion that takes place in the mouth. That is the chewing action of the food by the teeth. Actually, we can say that the digestion of food starts right in the buccal cavity. The food that is ingested is masticated in the buccal cavity with the help of grinding teeth. Masticated in the sense it is broken down into smaller particles. That is, mastication breaks the food physically into smaller particles. And with the help of this process, it increases the surface area of food for the action of enzymes. And this process is termed as mechanical digestion. Then chemical digestion is the second type. The chemical digestion is the type of digestion which takes place all along the alimentary canal right from the buccal cavity. That is, the digestive canal or the alimentary canal is associated with numerous digestive glands. Those which secrete certain digestive juices which are loaded with enzymes. And these enzymes help in the process of digestion. So this is termed as chemical digestion. Now this picture also tells you the two parts, that is the physical or mechanical digestion, just breaking the food into smaller particles. And chemical digestion, you can see the long chain of carbohydrate molecule is broken down, a scissor is shown, so it breaks it into small particles, that is simpler forms. But this scissor indicates the digestive enzymes which are present in the digestive juices. Now coming to the buccal cavity, the buccal cavity is having three salivary glands. The salivary glands are located in the buccal cavity and these secrete the saliva. The three glands are named as parotid salivary gland, submaxillary or submandibular salivary gland, or and third one is sublingual salivary gland. So the first one is parotid salivary gland. These are the largest salivary glands, one present below and front of each pinna, that is below the ear, or you can also say that it is located in front and beneath each jaw. You can see the location in the diagram as well. Submandibular salivary gland. This gland is located on the inner side of the lower jaw, one on each side. And the sublingual gland, it is located below the tongue. So the three types of salivary glands are there in the buccal cavity. What do these salivary glands do? These salivary glands secrete saliva. The saliva is slightly acidic. And what does it contain? The saliva contains water, salt, mucus, and some enzymes. The main enzyme present here is salivary amylase, which is also called as ptyalin. So that helps to moisten and lubricate the food. And it also helps, the saliva also helps to lubricate the internal lining of the buccal cavity as well as the tongue, which will help in swallowing the food as well as in speaking. Then the second function is it also helps in binding the food particles and making a food into a bolus, that is easy in swallowing. So the food formed at the end of mechanical digestion and the action of saliva in the buccal cavity is called as bolus. So into small balls, not too hard, not too soft. So it can be comfortably swallowed inside. What does the saliva contain? It contains the digestive enzyme called as salivary amylase, that is ptyalin. And what does this ptyalin do? It helps in digestion of starch. So the digestion of starch begins right in the buccal cavity. The ptyalin converts starch into maltose. So the starches which are present in the food in the buccal cavity are broken by salivary amylase or ptyalin into maltose. And maltose in the further process, as the food goes into the later part of the alimentary canal, is further digested. Maltose is also a type of sugar. Then saliva also helps to clean the mouth. That is, it tends to destroy the germs and to prevent tooth decay. And most important, saliva helps to maintain the water balance in the body. When your mouth starts running dry, you know that there is less saliva in the mouth, that is, your body is getting dehydrated. So saliva plays a major role. Then coming to next, what happens after the food is chewed and the bolus is ready in the mouth. Once the bolus is ready, the food then goes into a part of the alimentary canal which is called as esophagus. And the food starts passing down. But before that, as it goes into the end part of the buccal cavity, the food reaches the pharynx. There are two openings. One goes into the windpipe and the other goes into the food pipe, that is trachea and the esophagus. So their opening is guarded by a thin cartilaginous flap which is called as epiglottis. So this epiglottis, it covers the larynx while you are swallowing food, and it covers the esophagus while you are breathing. So it does not allow the food particles to enter into the windpipe, because by chance if they enter into the windpipe, the person can get choked. Okay. So what happens exactly there? You can see in the labelings what is shown. You can see the soft palate, the upper roof of the buccal cavity. Then you can also see what is labeled as epiglottis and where the mouth cavity is present. So here the passage of food bolus from the buccal cavity into the stomach through the pharynx and esophagus, that process is called as swallowing or deglutition. The process of swallowing, it involves many simultaneous actions. The tongue is pressed against the roof of the buccal cavity, that roof which is called as the palate. So the tongue gets pressed to the palate and it provides a push to the food bolus. You can see, just try it out. Touch your tongue to the roof of the buccal cavity. Immediately you feel you are able to swallow your saliva when your mouth is empty. So that creates a pressure which can push the food into the esophagus. As a result, the food, the bolus, it reaches the pharynx, from where it passes into the esophagus and finally into the stomach. Okay, so that is how the swallowing process takes place. Now coming to esophagus. Esophagus is a tube-like structure, a narrow, muscular, collapsible tube. Collapsible because it is not supported by any cartilage or any bony structure. It is just a muscular layer, like how you have the water pipes, rubber water pipes. At least rubber water pipes remain open. Okay, so it's a narrow, muscular, collapsible tube. It measures about 25 centimeters in length, and it passes through the neck, thorax, and pierces through the diaphragm. You can see the lower diagram, the pink color membrane which is showing you the diaphragm, and how the esophagus pierces through it, that is, it passes through the diaphragm, and it takes a sharp bend and finally opens into the stomach. The work of the esophagus is to help pass the food, that is the bolus, from the buccal cavity to the stomach. And this process of transferring the food by a wave of contractions in the wall of the esophagus or in any alimentary canal, any part of the alimentary canal, to help push the food forward is called as peristalsis. So the process by which the food passes through the alimentary canal by alternate contraction and relaxation by the muscles of the esophagus, that is called as peristalsis. So the food goes down. As you can see in the diagram how the contraction is there, it pushes the food forward, then it relaxes, and then the lower part where the food has reached, those muscles, the circular muscles, they contract, and hence they start pushing the food below, and slowly by slowly it reaches the esophagus, the stomach. The lower diagram also you can see the internal layer of the esophagus, how it looks. Once the food reaches the stomach, in the stomach, you can see the diagram, the shape of the stomach, it's a J-shaped bag. So the stomach of a man or a human being is a large J-shaped, highly muscular bag. It has very thick walls and they are highly distensible, that is, they can expand and contract. This bag-like structure present in the anterior part of the abdominal cavity. Where it is located? Anterior part of abdominal cavity, slightly towards the left part. So the stomach is present in the left part of the body. In this lesson or in any part where you are studying the animal physiology, you need to know where are the locations of the organs. Okay, so stomach is located in the anterior part of the abdomen, slightly towards the left. So the stomach, it has a capacity to hold 2 to 3 liters of food. Now this stomach, as you can see in the diagram, the J-shaped bag, then you can see the muscular walls, and at the same time in the internal layer you can see how the walls are folded. So this helps in churning the food. That is, the muscular walls of the stomach, they help to further grind the food. Because of the churning movement, the food starts getting broken down into much smaller particles. And as the food starts getting broken down, it starts mixing with the digestive juices. So here the food stays in the stomach for about 3 hours. And hence, when the churning takes place, the food is broken into small particles. And you can see in the diagram how the churning process happens. The walls of the stomach push the food inside and pull it out. Push in, pull out. So in that manner, they start breaking the food. That is called as partial digestion of food. And the process is termed as the churning process. Then, as the food enters into the stomach, there are chances when the churning is being done, food can be pushed backwards up into the esophagus. So to prevent that, there is a sphincter which is present right at the top end of the stomach where the esophagus joins the stomach, and that is called as the cardiac sphincter. You can see it labeled in the diagram, the red color patch, the ring of cardiac sphincter. Similarly, when the food enters from the stomach into the small intestine also, that opening also is guarded by a valve-like structure which is called as the pylorus or pyloric sphincter. So these sphincters help to keep the food in the stomach and help in proper digestion. So in the stomach you have the gastric juice which is produced by the walls of the stomach. So this gastric juice, it contains some enzymes which help in digestion. And at the same time, along with the gastric juice, there is even hydrochloric acid. So the hydrochloric acid which is there in the food, in the gastric juice, in the stomach, it helps to kill the bacteria that might have entered the food along with entered the stomach along with the food. So these, they clear out all the germs from the food. And then the gastric juice contains enzymes. Mainly it has two enzymes. The two enzymes are prorenin and pepsinogen. But both these are in inactive state. Inactive means they cannot act directly. So the hydrochloric acid does the work of activating these enzymes. The prorenin is activated to renin. So the renin is active form, prorenin is inactive form. And pepsinogen is also inactive form, whereas this pepsinogen is converted to pepsin. Pepsin is active form, and that is also done by HCl. So the first work, let us see the first one, that is what is done by pepsinogen. Pepsinogen, it is converted into pepsin. Then the pepsin converts the protein content of the food into simpler forms, that is in the form of peptides. So first pepsinogen is converted into pepsin by HCl. Then proteins are converted into peptides by pepsin. So remember this chain. In the same manner, prorenin is converted into renin by HCl. And this prorenin, when it converts into renin, the renin causes the curdling of milk. Whenever you consume milk, the first process is curdling of milk taking place in the digestive tract. And that is done by this renin enzyme. And it converts soluble milk proteins into casein and into insoluble paracasein. And in this manner, the food stays in the stomach for a longer period of time for its digestion. Now, because of the churning and the mixing of the food with the help of gastric juice and the partial digestion which has taken place, till now the complete mechanical digestion is complete, but chemical digestion is still to go on. So till now, whatever digestion takes place, the food in the stomach is converted into a thick paste, a pulp-like material, and that is called as chyme. We came across bolus in the mouth. Now it is called as chyme. And this happens because of the acidic nature of chyme. Okay, so it is able to kill all the germs also. Then once the chyme is created, the pyloric sphincter allows the chyme to enter into the small intestine. And this is poured into the small intestine little by little. As you can see in the diagram, after a meal, see the quantity of food in the stomach. Once the food starts getting digested, after 2 hours, little part of the food which is digested is poured into the small intestine. 3 to 4 hours, major portion of the food is stored. And that is the reason they say that we are not supposed to have meals in between. Keep a gap of 3 to 4 hours after every meal so that the stomach gets proper time to digest the food, or else we start facing indigestion problems. Now coming to the next part, that is the intestines. The intestines are a long tube-like structure. We have them divided into two categories, the small intestine and the large intestine. It is the largest, the total small intestine is the largest part of the alimentary canal. It measures about 7 meters. It is very narrow and highly coiled tube. It is differentiated into numerous parts, 3 more parts under it. The large intestine, it is about 1.5 meters long. And the total alimentary canal is 9 meters long. So now let us see about the small intestine. It is 7 meters long and the width is 2.5 centimeters. It is coiled and folded in the abdominal region where the intestines are located. That region of our body we call it as abdominal region. Now because the 7 meter long tube has to be fitted in such a small space just below the stomach, it is coiled, highly coiled and put into numerous folds. And in this only diagram you can see the 3 parts of the small intestine: duodenum, jejunum and ileum. Now coming to the first part, that is the duodenum. The duodenum, as you can see in the diagram, see where it shows connects to pylorus, that is the pyloric sphincter. only the small patch, which is about 12 finger breadths in length. It's not too long. So the stomach opens into a small C-shaped narrow duodenum. This is C-shaped. It measures about 12 finger breadths, that is 25 centimeters in length. And the duodenum, it receives the digestive juices from two main organs. That is the bile juice from the liver and the pancreatic juice from the pancreas. And this comes through one common tube or one common duct, a common passage called as common bile duct, or it is also named as hepatopancreatic duct. So that is the duodenum. Then you have the jejunum. The jejunum, why is it called so? The next shorter part of the small intestine is the jejunum. It measures about 2 meters in length. The meaning of jejunum is empty. Why so? Because whenever a postmortem is done on any dead body, this part of the small intestine is always found empty. Hence it is called as jejunum. Third is the ileum. It is the last part of the small intestine. It measures about 3 to 4 meters in length. The internal lining of jejunum and ileum, they are produced into a large number of prominent longitudinal folds. As you can see in the diagram, those folds which are shown, those longitudinal folds, they are called as villi, finger-like projections. These villi increase the absorptive surface area of the small intestine. And between the villi are present the glandular pits, which have numerous unicellular glands called as intestinal glands. They secrete the intestinal juice. Now, the small intestine, it secretes numerous intestinal enzymes. Now, let us see which are those enzymes. The enzymes present in the intestinal juice are, it has maltase, it has sucrase, it has lactase, lipase and peptidase. Now, let us go through it one by one. As you can see, the small intestine, it has numerous folds and it receives all the digestive juice from the three structures. That is from the gallbladder, that is the bile juice, and then from the, so it has all these digestive enzymes. Now let us see one by one. What does peptidase do? The peptides are converted into amino acids. Remember the first digestion, what has taken place? Proteins are broken down into peptides by the gastric juice. Now those peptides are now the simplest form of proteins. So those are then broken down into amino acids, the simplest form of proteins, by the peptidase. Then you all have maltase. In the mouth, the starch is broken down by amylase into maltose. Now that maltose is converted into the simplest form of sugar, that is the glucose, by the enzyme maltase. Then there is sucrose. The sucrase converts sucrose into glucose plus fructose. That is simple and complex sugar. Then you also have lactase. The lactase converts the milk sugar lactose into glucose and galactose. Then the next enzyme is lipase. The lipase, which digests the fats into fatty acids and glycerols. It does the work of emulsifying the fats, or the emulsified fats which are there, it digests it completely into fatty acids and glycerols. So these are the functions of the digestive enzymes which are present in the intestine. Now coming to the large organ of our body, you can see in the diagram, you can see one orangish color structure shown. It is the largest gland present in the human body. It is deep red or brown colored and it is having two lobe structure. It is located in the abdominal cavity. It secretes the bile juice which is stored in the transparent gallbladder. Can you see the gallbladder labeled? Yes. So there the gallbladder, it stores the bile juice. and the bile is a yellowish green colored fluid, and this is because of the presence of two pigments in the bile juice, biliverdin and bilirubin. These pigments are produced by the breakdown of hemoglobin. All the RBCs which are old, they are killed in the liver. So they are breaking down the worn out RBCs. They produce these two pigments, biliverdin and bilirubin. It also contains some salts such as sodium carbonate, sodium bicarbonate, sodium glycocolate and sodium taurocholate. What is the use of these minerals which are present? The sodium carbonate and sodium bicarbonate. It helps to neutralize the acidity which is present in the food, because these two are alkaline in nature. So they help to make the food alkaline. The gastric acid which was produced in the stomach, which makes the food acidic, it is then neutralized by the bile juice. So because of that, the food is less harmful. Along with that, that is actually it makes the food neutral. The neutralization process of the chyme is done because of the bile minerals. Then it emulsifies the fats. It does not have any digestive juice, the bile. It only does the work of emulsifying the fats. Here you can see how the ducts are shown in the diagram. These ducts collect the digestive bile juice and store it in that green color structure, the gallbladder. Then this diagram also shows you the location of the gallbladder exactly. So because of the bile juice, the food in the stomach, after it comes from the stomach into the small intestine, it becomes neutral, that is alkaline. Now what is the function of the bile? It does not have any digestive enzymes, but it emulsifies the fats. That is, the fats are broken down into, the larger drops of fats are broken into smaller droplets, and it increases the surface area for action of the enzymes. It also checks the growth of bacteria and prevents putrefaction of food. And then it adds a large quantity of water that makes the digestion of food easier. So in the lower diagram, you can see how the large drop of fat is broken down into smaller droplets. So remember here two important things: emulsification of fats, and second is the acidic chyme is converted into alkaline chyme. That is, neutralization of the acid takes place. The next organ is the pancreas. The pancreas is also associated with digestive process. It is a pinkish leaf-like structure, or you can also call it as whitish structure. It is triangular and much lobed. It is present behind and below the stomach. It is present behind and below the stomach. As you can see in this diagram, the pancreas are present behind the stomach and little below the stomach. It is embedded in the C-shaped loop of the duodenum. That is, where you have the duodenum, there you can find it located. It secretes the digestive juice called as the pancreatic juice, which is poured into the duodenum through the common bile duct. That is, the bile juice as well as the pancreatic juice, both are poured into the duodenum by one common duct.